I think it's almost day 170, something like that, but let's get straight into it. This is the journey of 0 to 1 billion. Document myself every day building my business models, LBOs. So, Steve Jobs did cold calls. Mark Zuckerberg built his software off of cold emails and word of mouth, obviously, and it just grew. But I'm just talking about the starting points. So, yesterday's video, right? The video I uploaded yesterday was talking about USP, unique selling proposition. And each one of them, as I study more people, right? Like Jamie Dimon, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, Brad Jacobs, Sterling, right? Each one of them had their own unique selling proposition. I see it over and over, but studying Steve Jobs and as a case study, when you read more into it, he was doing it out of his parents' garage. So he had a team of engineers basically trying to create a computer, and they just created like a circuit board. And he heard people complaining about how they don't want a circuit board, they want a full computer. And it didn't really exist at the time, but people were like describing it, right? So he created it and he grew his company. It was like unique. But when he was doing cold calls to get an investor to invest into Apple, he called the same people 150 times. And that's at least according to like stuff I read. So imagine if someone calls you 150 times, like you're definitely gonna answer that phone call. I've heard that over and over. It's like a pattern. It's like doing just one call isn't enough. Like you have to like call them repeatedly. So something I'm gonna do this week, today's Sunday. So for the rest of this week, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick 50 companies and I'm gonna call them every single day this week. That'll be my goal. Yeah, man, the last 2 weeks, I'd say, was a setback. And there's two approaches on how I should approach these deals, right? Because I have leads, but when they kind of like not show the interest, I'm not gonna convince them to sell me their business. Like you either want to sell it or you don't. You either want to take this further or you don't, right? But you might think that's not sales, right? I've heard that from Dan Pena and stuff like that. If you're not interested in selling your business, you move on to the next person. Today I had work and I went in someone's house today, closed them, $6,000 deal, walked out of the house. I know how to walk in someone's house and close them for like 30, 40, 50,000, 6,000, walk out. It's a pretty cool feeling, but I know how to do that. But when it comes to buying businesses, and each thing you sell is so different, nailing down exactly how to sell each thing, it's the same kind of principles, but it is different. I remember, what's the guy's name? Wolf of Wall Street. Right, he was saying that someone did an experiment with him and they asked him to close someone on like a new industry that he had no idea about. And what he did was he sat down for like an hour or two studying the industry, studying the logic and how he'll like explain a pitch. And he went in there and he closed the guy in 15 minutes, 15. And it was like for research. They were saying that they tried to do this with a bunch of salespeople and a lot of other salespeople failed. But the difference was they only studied that, like the books that they gave him. They told him you could study as much as you want, but you could study for as long as you want, but you have to do your best to close someone. He studied for a couple of hours. The other guys, they only studied for like 5 minutes. So knowing exactly what that world of what you're trying to sell is very important. That's how you could really conduct a solid sales. Okay, so another couple things that happened I spoke with a guy who has a software business. It's like a SaaS business, software as a service. And it's basically like Shopify, except you could do bids on them. Like you could create like a bid. And people do that with like Amazon returns. They'll use his website to create like a bid website. And it's kind of crazy because his software, just as like playing around, like I was at work, like after I spoke with him, you could use ChatGPT and create softwares. Create any kind of software. It's really insane. So I randomly, like, just real quick, I try to like make his website like something simple. ChatGPT is crazy, man. Like you could do it super fast. AI is a huge trend. It's hard to miss. Like everyone knows that's what's coming. It's here already. How are you gonna take advantage of it? You got blockchain, all these different trends in the world. How are you gonna make money off of it? My mind's, I don't wanna, my mind, the biggest thing with me is focus. Like I need to have the focus. Yeah. Also, Jamie Dimon is a very interesting guy. You guys hear the cat? I was reading on Jamie Dimon today, and a lot of his interviews, a lot of college interviews, like a Harvard interview or a Penn State interview. Those interviews are very like interesting to watch. People don't really watch those. They'll watch like a Luke Belmar or like a I don't know, like any kind of podcast, but those are people trying to sell you a course. They won't listen to the people that have actual money, like a Steven Schwartzman or whoever, or a Phil Knight from Nike. They won't pay attention to that, which is very interesting. I'm thinking about